Without sufficient details, it is impossible to ascertain if the receptacles discussed initially and in the exception paragraph are identical. A comprehensive analysis necessitates detailed specifications regarding the receptacles in question. Crucially, information such as voltage, amperage, configuration, intended application, and adherence to specific standards is essential for making a definitive determination. For example, receptacles designed for residential use typically adhere to different standards than those intended for industrial applications. Voltage ratings, such as 120 volts or 240 volts, will dictate the type of equipment that can be safely connected. Amperage ratings, such as 15 amps or 20 amps, specify the maximum current the receptacle can handle. Configuration refers to the physical arrangement of the slots and grounding pin, which must match the plug of the connected device. Furthermore, the intended application, whether it is for general purpose use or a specialized application like a ground fault circuit interrupter, GFCI protected circuit, impacts the receptacle's design and features. Standards, such as those published by the National Electrical Code, NEC, dictate the construction and installation requirements for receptacles to ensure safety and prevent electrical hazards. To properly assess whether the receptacles are the same, one would need to consider the manufacturer's specifications, including the part number and any relevant certifications. Visual inspection could also be helpful, but it is not always conclusive, as similar-looking receptacles may have different internal components and ratings. Consulting an electrician is recommended if you are unsure about the type of receptacle required for a specific application. They can assess the electrical system and recommend the appropriate receptacle to ensure safe and reliable operation. Examining the wiring diagrams or electrical plans for the building or equipment in question can offer additional clues. These documents often specify the type and location of receptacles, as well as any special requirements for their installation. In the absence of detailed information, making assumptions about the receptacles can be dangerous and could lead to electrical hazards. It is always best to err on the side of caution and seek expert advice when dealing with electrical systems. Furthermore, consider the context in which the receptacles are being used. Are they part of a new installation, or are they replacements for existing receptacles? If they are replacements, it is important to ensure that the new receptacles are compatible with the existing wiring and electrical system. In addition to the electrical characteristics of the receptacles, it is also important to consider their physical properties. For example, are they surface-mounted or flush-mounted? Are they weather-resistant or tamper-resistant? These factors can influence the choice of receptacle for a particular application. Surface-mounted receptacles are typically used in locations where it is not possible to install flush-mounted receptacles, such as on concrete walls or in unfinished basements. Flush-mounted receptacles are installed in wall boxes and are typically used in finished areas. Weather-resistant receptacles are designed to withstand exposure to moisture and are typically used in outdoor locations. Tamper-resistant receptacles have a mechanism that prevents children from inserting objects into the slots, reducing the risk of electrical shock. If the receptacles are located in a hazardous environment, such as a chemical plant or a refinery, it is important to use receptacles that are specifically designed for those environments. These receptacles are typically explosion-proof and are designed to prevent sparks from igniting flammable materials. The National Electrical Code, NEC, provides detailed requirements for the installation of receptacles in various locations and environments. It is important to consult the NEC to ensure that receptacles are installed in accordance with these requirements. The NEC also specifies the types of receptacles that are permitted in different locations. For example, the NEC prohibits the use of standard receptacles in wet locations, such as bathrooms and kitchens. In these locations, GFCI-protected receptacles are required to protect against electrical shock. Furthermore, the NEC requires that all receptacles installed in dwelling units be tamper-resistant. This requirement is intended to protect children from electrical shock. When replacing receptacles, it is important to use the correct type of receptacle for the application. Using the wrong type of receptacle can create a safety hazard and could violate the NEC. If you are unsure about the type of receptacle required, consult an electrician. They can assess the situation and recommend the appropriate receptacle. Another factor to consider is the wiring method used to connect the receptacles. Are the receptacles wired with non-metallic sheath cable, NM cable, or with conduit? The wiring method can affect the type of receptacle that can be used. For example, some receptacles are specifically designed for use with NN cable, while others are designed for use with conduit. It is important to use the correct type of receptacle for the wiring method used. The NEC provides detailed requirements for the wiring of receptacles. It is important to consult the NEC to ensure that receptacles are wired in accordance with these requirements. The NEC also specifies the types of wiring methods that are permitted in different locations. For example, the NEC prohibits the use of NM cable in some commercial and industrial locations. In these locations, conduit is typically required. When wiring receptacles, it is important to use the correct size of wire. The wire size must be sufficient to carry the current that the receptacle is expected to draw. Using undersized wire can cause the wire to overheat and could create a fire hazard. The NEC provides tables that specify the minimum wire size for different amperage ratings. It is important to consult these tables to ensure that the correct size of wire is used. In addition to the wire size, it is also important to use the correct type of wire. The wire must be rated for the temperature and environment in which it is being used. For example, THHM wire is commonly used for general-purpose wiring, while XHHW wire is used for wet locations. It is important to use the correct type of wire to ensure that the wiring is safe and reliable. When installing receptacles, it is important to follow all safety precautions. Always turn off the power to the circuit before working on any electrical equipment. Use insulated tools and wear safety glasses. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, consult an electrician. They can install the receptacle safely and correctly. In summary, determining if two receptacles are the same requires detailed information including voltage, amperage, configuration, application, and adherence to standards. Without this data, a proper comparison is impossible.